You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of the best in contemporary a cappella. I'm Evan.
And I'm Kayla, and this week we had Ben Spalding on the show. Ben's involved with a cappella in a number of ways. He's the choral director at Centerville High Schools. He's the director of Centerville High School's Forte, and he's also the co-founder of Vocalight. He co-founded the Acappella Education Association, and he's also an instructor at Camp Acappella. During this episode, we talked about the different projects he's involved with and his directing techniques and philosophy.
As Kayla mentioned, Ben is involved in a myriad of things, so we've linked all of those in the show notes, which you can find on SoundCloud by clicking Show More, or on the podcast app by clicking the album art. And without any further ado, this week's episode of Head Voice.
So thanks again for joining us, Ben. We're very, very excited to have you on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask you if you could just give us a little bio, so to speak, of your musical journey, where you started and how you got to where you are today.
Cool. So the bio of Ben Spalding, interesting. That was an interesting way of saying that. The tale of Ben Spalding. It's been long and a lot of trial and error, I guess. And it started back in high school. I think I would always put together like doo-wop groups. And so we had this I was in a group called Varsity Ensemble at Winton Woods High School is where I went. Mm-hmm. And we had this yearly like talent show, or we called the VE show, Varsity Ensemble show. And I'd always put together like a doo-wop group. We'd sing in the Still of the Night and all of that stuff. So it's always been something that I loved. And then after high school, I went to the University of Kentucky, and I was in the Acoustic Cats. So the group that was later on the sing-off. So that was an interesting thing there, but nobody prior to the sing-off had really heard much about the Acoustic Cats, for better or worse. I don't know. So yeah. So I absolutely loved it. And I think what I loved then in college is that there was something about a cappella that the audience always gravitated towards, and they were always just so like, oh my gosh, this is amazing kind of response. And it was just different at the time. And so I've always strived to be different and all of that stuff. And it just, I don't know, be a little bit of a pioneer, so to speak. But so after that, I got a job at my alma mater at Winton Woods, and I started, actually before that I was at a school called Northwest High School, and I started the Harmonites. They were the Knights. And so I started the Harmonites the very first year that I was there, and that was back in like 2004. And then after that, I went back to my alma mater, and my brother actually was in high school when I came back and performed with the Acoustic Cats. I brought the Acoustic Cats there, and we performed for my old high school. And my brother ended up starting a group called Harmony at Winton Woods, and that was the first a cappella group there. So kind of in a roundabout family way, we started that, and and then I kind of continued and took over for that. And then I created a group called Evolution, and a girls group called Counterpoint. And then I got to know Brody McDonald because we went to the first ever Kettering Acappella Festival. I don't remember what year that was. It was probably like 2000 I don't even know, 2008, 10, something like that. That's a very broad range. So I went to the very first Kettering Acappella Festival, and I guess it was around 2010. Yeah, it was. And so from there, Brody and I got to know each other. And when the job opened up at Centerville High School, he called me, and I was like, yes, I would love to do that, because I was grooming to take over for at my alma mater for the director there. He's an amazing director. His name's David Bell, and just a phenomenal director. And I was the assistant at Winton Woods, but I was doing the a cappella groups, and so I got a lot of enjoyment out of that. But then when I took over at Centerville High School, things just changed, and they had a class called Forte. It was not an a cappella group at the time. They dabbled in a little bit of it, but they didn't have a very distinct identity at that point. The very first year there, I kind of toyed with possibly changing the group as name, but I did change it to make it a completely a cappella group. And it was a class. It was 7th period of the day, and my very first year there was 18 members, and I was like, well, that's a lot, but that's a very good. It's close to where I want to be for an a cappella group. So we started it, and Forte was huge, like in size when I first started there. And slowly we took the army of people, and every year that I would graduate people, I would put less in. And so finally I got to the point where this next year we're going to be at 12 members. And I really like that number. I don't particularly love in high school having, you can have less, and 11th hour is a perfect example of a smaller 6 to 7 to 8 member group. But I also don't want to identify Forte with something that's right in our backyard and be the same thing as them. We wanted to be different. So I like the 12 to 14 range for Forte. And now I get the pleasure of having a 5-member group. So if I want the small group, I have Vocalight. So it's amazing, and I get both sides. So it's really, really cool. So that's the majority of my journey to Acappella and where I am now.
Awesome. So you are, as you're speaking to with Vocalight and Forte, you have those sizes of groups, and then you're also, teaching all the choirs at Centerville, presumably, and you've had great success doing, all those levels. For you, what's the difference between directing a choral ensemble versus directing a Forte?
I think the biggest difference between a choral ensemble and like Forte is, to this point, it has been that there's a little bit more of a social connection because there's less people involved, and so you really get to be around them a lot more. And there's just that connection that's a little bit different from your larger groups. It's really hard. It's not impossible to connect with larger groups, but it's a lot different. It's like you have your Acappella Academy with 68 members in a very intimate setting, and then you have your Camp Acappella with 350 campers or more, and they're just totally different environments. And they cater to totally different things. So I think that with the larger choral ensembles and with Forte, that's one of the biggest differences, is that I can, I guess, address more individual needs as opposed to like section needs and things like that. And I have been at Centerville. So I just finished my 6th year there, and this I've been the only director. So I direct 5 curricular choirs during the school day, and then we have a Nove, which is an after-school a cappella group, and then we have Summit, which is a girls' after-school a cappella group, and then I have a middle school honors choir, and then a men's ensemble as well. So it's and a Vocalight, yeah. So it's now I will say, thank the Lord that as of this coming school year, I've been asking for a while that they are hiring somebody part-time to help me out, because it's been hard to manage it all by myself, but. I love it. I have a sickness for it in a good way.
Yeah.
For you, like, because I know, a lot of people that come from the choral background in middle school, high school, and then go on to college to sing in a cappella groups, kind of sometimes have trouble transitioning from that choral style of singing to singing pop music.
Right.
Is there, when you're coaching those two different groups, is the vocabulary different? How are you working with them in different ways?
I think that what I've had to teach my kids is that there's a switch that you have to flip when you're going back and forth. When you're singing classically, they're way more similar than people think, though, is the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Holly in Vocaloid has an opera background. She's an amazing opera singer. Ben McLean in Sonos and Aurora has a background in opera, and he vocal percussions and sings.
Tomorrow.
Oh yeah. So hey,
yeah.
Hey Ben. Yeah. So yeah. No, Ben McLean's amazing. But so it's interesting that there's a lot more crossover than you think. But I think the biggest thing is with choral music is you're a lot taller vowels, a lot more open space. Whereas with a cappella, you might have some less space, but you still need to sing healthy, and you still need to do all of the proper things and the technique and get to those places. But you still and if you're in a larger a cappella group, you need to match. I mean, it may not be a choral. But if it's a jazzy or whatever, or lighter or whatever, or more spread, then you just need to match that within your section. So it's similar things, just a different way of getting to a different kind of color palette.
Right.
If that makes sense.
So because you're hopping around from all these different groups and they take up a lot of your time, how do you sort of make the rehearsal time that you do have, specifically with groups like Forte, how do you make that rehearsal time so efficient and get the most out of it?
One of the biggest things, especially with Forte, is that we have part tracks for every song. I make sure that I have part tracks, and that can just be a MIDI file. But I make sure that I've And one of the things that I will do if I can't get a MIDI file or whatever is I'll actually even just have them get out their phones. And this is something that I've done in my other choirs. And I'll be like, all right, guys, I'm going to play through the alto part. All of your altos, I need you to record this on your phone. And then I have all of their notes played for them. And then they can go home and practice all they want. So that's a really quick way if people are like, I don't know how to use technology. Well, everybody in your classroom has a phone. I know you don't like to use it, but get it out because it has a recorder on it. I mean, you know, like we have the ability to make things a lot simpler for ourselves than people really understand. So, I mean, I'll play the parts for them. And my expectation is that they come to rehearsal, especially with Forte. They have to know the notes when they get there. I can play music. I can play all the parts for them. But if I'm taking all the time to play the notes for them, it's a tedious process. And playing 8 parts or 12 parts or 10 parts while the other people are sitting there and listening is just atrociously boring. But it's just, so I try to maximize time with that and solos. I have them sing those via like iPhone or whatever, record their solos auditions and then send them to me. And it takes the element out where everybody hears each other and they're like, oh my gosh, she's so good, she should get it. And then she does it, and then everybody's like, it's you, why'd you do that? And I'm like, because I'm the director, I don't know. So, you know, but
I really like that.
I like that too.
So
efficient.
So you have done a lot of cool stuff with Forte, obviously.
Oh, thanks.
Have recently won finals, have done that a few times, but you also do stuff that I think is really exciting in terms of on YouTube especially. You're doing a lot of collaborations with really cool people in the Acappella community. You're getting videos done and all that. So for high school choir directors that are just starting, you know, their programs, it would seem to me from the outside perspective that these things, while all awesome, do cost a certain amount of money to, you know, be using Dietz and getting, you know, Kirsten Maldonado into a video. Like those kind of things cost money. So what is the value of those videos and collaborations? And then how do you make sure that these kids are constantly getting those exposure to them?
I think that I'm a person that if I want something, I go after it. And I think the word that is the most motivational to me is no. As weird as that sounds, if somebody tells me no, in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm going to find a way to make that not true. But that's kind of a random way of starting. But that's just a motivational word for me. And I don't like being told. I don't know. I don't feel like anybody should have to not get certain things that are amazing. And I think that any place that I've been, like when I were in high school, if I got the chance to sing with these people, it would make my world. It would just everything would be amazing. And you know, if you want to, I've always been of the mentality too, if you want to be the best, you have to surround yourself with the best. So like there are things that I'm, you know, maybe not good at. So I'm going to get the person that is the absolute best in the field to fill that void where I'm not good at it. And so you really you can't just get somebody that's okay to fill it, because then it's just going to be an okay product. Right. So, but then there are the strengths that I have that I protect, and I'm like that are very, you know, like working a group and getting the dynamics out and making sure that they have the emotion and all the understanding and really getting a group from ground zero to a 10. So those are some of my strengths and with working with a group, but I have many weaknesses where I make sure that I hire out for those. And I always think, too, with surrounding yourself with great people, that these kids, if they want to do this for a living or if they want to sing in the business, they need to be able to talk to these people that are and create relationships and network with people that are making it on a daily basis and living this. And they need to hear that, you know what, like Avi Kaplan decided to not do pentatonics anymore because, oh my gosh, like as amazing as it is, it's a lot of time, you know, and he never gets to see his family. Now, he's in a very rare situation to where most, you know, got to a point where a lot of people don't get as well. But just being able to go to Acappella Academy and being able to be a part of Camp Acappella and work with all of these different people, and then, you know, being able to talk to Kirsty Maldonado and her doing a video with us and working with Aaron Bentledge and India Carney, it's just one of those things that they get to really understand and see people that are living this on a daily basis. And to me, that's the ultimate thing, is that, you know, if you want to know how to do it, you have to be around people that are doing it. And so I think that's the biggest educational value, is that they get to sing with people that are not only amazing and gracious, but that are out there doing this for a living, and they get to, the singing part is secondary to the relationships and the friendships, and also the educational value that they get with just knowing what these people are doing and stuff. So I don't know if that's, yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. So outside of Forte, you have Vocaloid too.
Yeah.
And they sang that wonderful rendition of Stay for us, which was beautiful. But I was just curious to see what was the inspiration behind starting Vocalight, and how did that all come together?
The inspiration behind Vocalight, and it's very true. It wasn't a self-interest. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I have to have a pro group.
Yeah.
It was by no stretch of the imagination that, because, as you've heard before, I have enough to do. So it's not like I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could just do one more group, that would be amazing. But I do have a hard time saying no to things, and I like to do as much as I can and help as many people as possible. But Justin and some of the members of the group have always wanted to do it. Justin Critchfield and all of them, but I know in particular, like I've always had a really close connection with him back in Forte, and he was like, I just want to do this for a living. And I was like, well, then let's try to make that happen. And so it was a way for me to help them, and a way for, the honest truth is that a lot of groups would love to do it, but they don't have the means to do it. They don't have the recording equipment. They don't have the microphones. They don't have the ability to do videos and put things on iTunes, because there's no, startup money for that. So I was able to be that for them. And I do the little things. Like, it's funny because Justin was like, oh my gosh, like, because we're performing in Wisconsin right now. He was like, you weren't there for the gig. And we were like, wait, where's we don't have our merch out, and we don't have this. And he was like, where's Spalding? Oh my God. So it's funny because you start to realize, that we all serve a purpose in it. And I've found unbelievable satisfaction with it, because those kids are amazing. So Holly and Lily and Faith and Justin and Joe are just amazing humans, and I enjoy being around them, and they make my life better for it. And they get to share music, and it's absolutely a blast. And so selfishly for me, then I get the fun out of it, and I get to be in Wisconsin traveling, and here we are a week in Wisconsin, and we got to work with Christopher Diaz, and we got to open up for Acappella University, and they got to sing just for Camp Acappella a week ago, and they opened up for that, and it was just an amazing experience at Camp Acappella. And they get to open up for Grammy-winning artist Dea on Saturday. So we're here and we're working through kinks, and we're making our show better, or they are. And then I'll go out and help them out and critique it and say, or whatever. And Christopher's been here, and so it's just, I don't know. It gives me energy. It gives me excitement. It gives me a purpose in life. So
you're kind of getting at this, but how do you guys split the roles between the kids that are in the group and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
So yeah, we're working through that. I think that one of the things is that it's an equal partnership. So we all have things that we do and that we're good at. Justin records, Holly's great at social media, and we're still trying to figure out a little bit of that as to who does what, whose strengths are where, and things like that. And especially when we go and work, and if we clinic groups, like who's the person that is better at talking about solo stuff, who's the person that's better doing this, and obviously Justin doing vocal percussion and Joe bass, they can do stuff on that. So I think that's important. I think my main role in it is, one, making sure that they know everything that needs to happen when they go to Wisconsin, like a gig like Wisconsin, and they're here for a week. I make sure that all the hotels are taken care of. I make sure that they know all the times. I printed out this long itinerary for the week, and wrote it all out, and I put phone numbers and all the things that they needed to know. I'm like the dad. So I just make sure that all of that, the little things are taken care of. Make sure that the merch is taken care of. Make sure all of this stuff's there so that they can focus on the music. And I also have the ability to work the music with them. But I also try to find a balance with that, because I want them to take ownership and know that it's their group. They don't need to, I don't need to tell them, no, you have to do this song. That's not the relationship that I have with this group. It's that they need to make the musical decisions. They need to be happy and proud of the product that they're putting on, and I'll give them feedback and help them get, from point A to point B with the song if they want that. And they do. But it's not me dictating. And with Forte, it's more of it's like, well, you don't like that. too bad. So, but and I'm just kidding. I'm not really like hardcore like with Forte, but it's a little bit different from the standpoint that yes, if there is a major decision that needs to be made, it's going to be me that makes the final decision. Whereas with this group, it's not necessarily the case. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely does. So outside of the groups that you're currently directing, you are also involved in Acappella Education Association.
Yep.
So I was just wondering if you could kind of speak to that a little bit and what your role is and what you're currently working on with the association.
Yeah, so the Acappella Education Association is something that J.D. Frizzell, Brody McDonald, and myself started with Alex Fan as well. And it was something to further spread the love of acapella. I mean, for example, with choral music, you have the American Choral Directors Association. With music nationwide, you have OMEA, which is the Ohio. Well, actually, you have NAFME, which is the National Association for Music Education, and then OMEA is each state has their branch. So it was kind of a way to legitimize the art and to let people know that it's important and to make sure that people had resources out there. It's not something that we get paid to do. I'm actually, as of this past year, I'm not doing it currently. I took a break because I needed to focus a little bit more on family, and I'm actually finishing up some classwork for my master's to finalize that because I need more stuff to do. Just kidding, but no, it's I need more jobs, more things. But it was just something that I had almost finished and a while back. But when I got the job at Centerville, I had to stop because it was just like, oh my gosh, I need to build this program and I need to do this, and this, and I had to put my master's on hold. So now I'm kind of finishing that up now that Forte and the choral program there at Centerville is established. So, and my kids are a little older at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Something to me, I personally really wasn't. I was only in choir for 1 year in high school, but a big part of the scholastic choral tradition is doing a lot of competition and stuff like that, and obviously that translates to Acappella and ICHSA and all that. So I think it's interesting with Forte and Vocalight too by extension, but it's like you've been able to kind of tread the line of being a competitive group on the one hand, and on the other hand you are running a contemporary YouTube channel the way that a YouTuber would run it, in terms of having out like content pretty consistently,
right,
and then on the third hand, I guess, doing cool stuff like writing all originals albums, which is crazy. So I guess just like why do all those things? Like what is the value of that?
I think the value is that it's different. I think I absolutely love choral music. I don't want that to ever come across that I don't. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I don't like about it is I think that world can be very stale. And one of the reasons is that if you do an Eric Whitacre piece, you're going to go into competition. And I think you still should do that because it's a bar and there's a reason to do that for your kids and all that stuff. But you're going to go in there and you're going to get judged on how well you sing what's written on the page. Mm-hmm. And so with acapella music, it's a way to be like, you know what? I don't love how Dietz did this part, and he may disagree with me, but he's also going to be fine if I change it, Mm-hmm. And Deke Sheeran, we'll do, you're singing his chart, and you're like, you know what? We're going to make the bass part a little bit different from what he did or whatever, or, we're going to, so I think that is something that I've always loved. I've always liked to do things that are different, so that when we go out there and we sing all original songs, or we sing, and plus these kids love to, it's a way for them to have the ultimate ownership of a song. It's like, I wrote this song, and then we put it to, so that it's empowering them even more. So that's a great thing. But it's also, when we go out there, no other group is ever going to have done that. And I think that's just a powerful thing. And I think that's important to me. There are times where I will get a chart because it's just so good. And I'm like, you know what, we're going to do that because it gives me so much love and joy to do that chart. And it does them as well. It's never about just me, but for the most part, I love to be different, and I don't want to be the group that did Eric Whitacre's Sleep the 1,000th, millionth time. Mm-hmm. Amazing song, don't get me wrong. Amazing, love it. would still do it, but I get motivated by doing things that are different, and you know, and I think the kids do too. They're like, oh my gosh, nobody else is doing this. This is cool.
Yeah. Right.
So the reason why we do the videos and run it like that is I think it's unbelievably important because there are a lot of kids. The music industry is changing.
Totally.
And music education is changing. And if kids are going to want to make it, I have kids trying to make it, they need to understand that they're going to have content out there.
Yeah.
It's, you know, Pentatonics made it possibly more so because of their content and the constant interaction with people that people crave and stuff. So I think that they need to understand that, you know, why run it like that is because I think there's so much educational value to running it like a person that wants to make it in the business.
Right.
Totally.
I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So sadly, we're nearing the end of our episode today. But 2 questions that we like to ask all our guests are, what is something in the acapella sphere that you're excited by, a trend or whatnot? And then second, what is on the agenda for you? What's up next for you?
Cool. So something that I am excited about, I think right now, I'm excited about the growth of Camp Acappella. Acappella University, all of these different things that are just continuously. The cool thing about them, you know, and I've worked at Camp Acappella since its inaugural year at Ohio State. Now it's at Wright State every single year. But the cool thing about them is that it's getting kids that don't have a group in their high school. So some of these kids get to come and they've never had a group. It's sad because they'll get to go back and not necessarily have a group, but then they also might get the tools to start a group.
Yeah.
So I think that's exciting to me, and I think that also leads into the next part. Is I think in 10 years it's going to be crazy. You're going to see all of these acapella people in college that are going to starting more groups, and it's going to feed into education as a whole, and you're going to have so many good groups in the next 10 years. It's just going to be amazing, and also like, oh my gosh, like it's just going to continue to grow in quality, because you'll have the college students now that are leading groups in high schools and teaching in education. So the agenda for me is we have the Vocaloid has the open. I am venturing Forte onto in-ears, and we have in-ear monitors, which is going to be fun. It's something that I've been saving up for with the program for three-ish years. And once I used in-ear monitors with Vocalight, I was like, yeah, that just needs to happen. So it took a while, but we finally have just ordered them this past week. And so I'm excited to do that and continue to push the envelope and see what happens. Who knows? Maybe I'll write another book at some point. I have the book with Deke, and you know, music takes me on a journey. Sometimes I know the answers, and sometimes it takes me this completely a different way, and I'm going to let it keep taking me and see what happens.
That's awesome. It's really cool to see an educator who's involved in acapella who can get the choral tradition and, you know, make something that's good and fun for kids to do, but to like understand the importance of, you know, doing things like the industry is doing them, like for kids in high school is like insane. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for coming on this week, Ben. It was a real pleasure talking to you. And we hope that you will join us next week for a new episode of Head Voice.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, and thank you all so much.
I know you've got to so stay. All you have to do is wait a second. Your hands on mine. It's taken, so stay, so stay. Oh, just stay, just stay, just stay. I've never been the best at letting go. Spend the night alone. Yes, I need you. Yes, I need you. And you need to. Oh, make it work. Can't stay forever. Baby,
stay.
Stay. All you have to do is stay a minute. Just take your time. The clock is ticking, so stay. All you have to do is wait a second. Your hands on mine. Guide is ticking, so stay, so stay. Oh, just stay, just stay, just stay.
Bye. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That sounded great.